Hello, everyone. I'm Kalpana Singhal, Chief Editor, CXO TV and Tech Plus Media Group. Welcome to the CXO Talk featuring Dr. Fene Osakwe, a renowned technology professional and cybersecurity expert. It is truly an honor to have with us tonight someone who has not only excelled in the field of cybersecurity, but also demonstrated exceptional leadership skills throughout his career. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Fene Osakwe. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Fene.
Thank you. Thank you, Kalpana. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. So let's start by delving into your remarkable journey in the world of technology and cybersecurity. What inspired you to pursue a career in cybersecurity?
Interesting. I always get asked this question, and it is the same answer. I got hacked. So, I got hacked. What? That's probably 12 years ago now, or thereabout, or maybe less. I can't remember. And so I was sitting down somewhere on a Sunday. I was planning to go to church, and I get a debit alert. I'm like, okay, I didn't do anything. And then while I was thinking about where did I make this transaction, I get the second debit alert. And then while I'm still trying to put it, I get the third debit alert. At this point, I'm just screaming and shouting. And from then went to the bank. I was told, oh, it looks like you didn't do some cybersecurity best practice. It looks like you shared your PIN with someone. All these things that I had no clue about. This was what? This was, 15 years ago, thereabouts. So afterwards, I sort of started a career in trying to make sure that that did not happen to other people, if that makes sense. And that's how we got to where we are today.
Wow, that's great. It's all about giving back to the society. Yeah.
It is. That's important for me.
Yeah. So now, what are some of the emerging cybersecurity threats that organizations should be aware of, and how are these threats evolving in sophistication and impact?
Interesting. So I published an article, which I try to do every year, on Forbes, and the title of the article is Top Cybersecurity Trends That Companies Should Look Out For in the Year. For 2024, I think I wrote about 9, but we did not have a lot of time. So let me talk about 1 or 2 or maybe 3. So one of the things I spoke about was nation-state sponsored attacks. And what is nation-state sponsored? This is just simply saying that because of how much we are seeing wars and rumors of wars in across the world, that you will begin to see certain countries begin to pay hackers to compromise the security of other countries, to steal data, and to shut down critical infrastructure. You will begin to see things like that. And that's one of the things we're beginning to see now. The other thing, which I think is interesting, and another trend that I see happening, is just what I call the rise and ease of ransomware. Like you said, technologies, it's not new, but what's just happening is the ability to automate it is now so easy that you now have machine versus human. And maybe if we have time later, we'll talk about how to mitigate some of these things, because now we need to go to machine versus machine in order to solve some of these problems. And the third one, which is interesting, this is not in any Google place. This was simply based on my research, is what I call the security professional burnout. Like, security professionals just burnt out. You are, in one breath, you have all these laws to comply with. In the second breath, you have to deal with all the cybersecurity issues in the organization. In the third breath, you need to make sure that, the systems are being patched and all of this. In another breath, you have to be audited, and it's a lot. I was at a conference in Amsterdam some December last year. I had about 30 CISOs in the room, and I said, raise up your hands if you are totally burnt out. All 30 raised up their hands. All 30. They were just exhausted. And that speaks to sometimes the demand and the mental health problems we are beginning to have in cybersecurity.
Yeah. So I think being a CISO is not an easy task. So being a Chief Information Security Officer requires multitasking. And I think as the threats are ever evolving, so as the CISOs has to be always on toes when it comes to cyber resilience. So making more cybersecurity strategies. So, and as you rightly mentioned that they are under extreme pressure, and such an extreme pressure leads to the poor mental health.
Yeah.
So I think, that makes me interested in doing another episode altogether, wherein we can talk a lot more about it.
Yep. I totally agree, because I have a lot to share in that space. I have personal experience.
So here we will stick to our latest threats, the trends basically, and what kind of strategies we can have around it. So cyber attackers are, like we discuss, constantly evolving their techniques. Can you discuss some of the latest trends in cyber tech methodologies, and how can organizations proactively defend against these evolving threats?
Yeah. So we just spoke about some of the evolving trends, isn't it? In terms of how organizations can protect themselves, I've done this for so long, and there's just no silver bullet to this thing. It's layers and layers and layers of strategy and a lot of things coming together. But while the game continues to change, certain strategies remain. So one of them is cybersecurity training. Now, what we have always done is cybersecurity awareness. Now, that's no longer enough. The difference between awareness and training is there's a fire in the building. I know where the fire extinguisher is, but I don't know how to use it. So I could still get burnt, even though I am aware that, hey, there's the water, that's the extinguisher, but I don't know how to use it. When it comes to cyber, you get a phishing email, you do not know what to do, but you know that this is probably wrong. And this is where training comes in to say, this is what to do. This is who to report it to. This is how to flag it. This is how not to forward the email to your colleague to ask, did you get this kind of thing? Because you have spread malware. This is where, the moment you're getting MFA codes coming to your phone where you did not initiate it, it means someone is probably pushing those codes to you. So training, okay, so security awareness is no longer enough. This training, that's the first one. The second one is we now need to fight machines with machines. And so if your security architecture, either your firewall or your EDRs do not have some bit of machine learning embedded in them, you are going to suffer in a matter of time, because previously you say, how do you know if it's an email? Oh, look for errors, look for this, look for that. Well, now they are so sophisticated, they look so real, so you cannot pick it up just the normal way. Now it needs to be the machine that created it to be able to pick it up. So that's important. So integrate machine learning and artificial intelligence into your response. And I think the third one, not to probably say too many, I was going to talk about three more, is security by design. Security by design, for me, I'm still going to say fourth one because it's important. Security by design is making sure that security is embedded in your architecture. So the moment you're thinking about a new product, security is involved. The moment you're thinking about a new process, security is involved. Just the same way the data privacy and the DPO gets involved with what we call, the DPA and all these sort of things for privacy, security should be involved. Lastly, the board needs to take more responsibility for security.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I can conclude from this is these 4-5 points that we have highlighted, that there is a fabric, and that fabric of cybersecurity, I think there is a kind of interoperability issues which needs to be addressed, because if we are planning to have security from the first stage, if it is a product development or maybe any kind of processes for any departments, still there is a legacy infrastructure. There are new technologies coming in the SOC. The SOC is having, the SOC is having all kind of operations for different layers of technologies that we are talking about, layers on layers and layers. So how are we going to integrate all those technologies together so that, we are able to exploit all of them? First thing is, of course, the training, but the training has to be, after awareness, has to be of non-IT team. IT team is already aware of that, okay, this is what is a fictional mail and what he has to do with that mail. But when it comes to training, it is the training of the non-IT team members in the organization. When it comes to the architecture, that fabric that we are talking about, and we are talking about the interoperability. So what are your views, when it comes to so many new layers of security coming up? How are CISOs going to, or how are organizations going to deal with that kind of a problem?
So when it comes to the different layers, I think this is where a principle like zero trust becomes helpful, to be honest, because the way security used to be, and this is probably going to get a bit technical, there used to be something when we were in school called the OSI layer. And that layer had different, it was simply speaking to how data is transmitted, okay? So there's the data layer, there's just the session layer, there's the application layer. There are all these layers, right? From an architecture perspective, and this is why security needs to be involved when you're doing your products and things like that. Security can be breached now at any of those layers. And this is why you begin to hear concepts like defense in depth. It simply means on these layers, have some level of security. So on your data layer, is data encrypted in transit? Is data encrypted in motion? On the application layer, do you have things like your application firewall? Have you done your parameterized queries on the application level? At the session level, what have you done around session management, session destroy, session tokens, all these type of things? At the database level, is data encrypted? How are you managing access? Oh, it's just a whole bunch of things. And I think the easiest way to fail is to think that you can protect everything. You're going to fail like that. I mean, you're talking of organizations. The last organization where I was a CISO, we had, I don't know what, maybe 2,000 something systems. You cannot protect everything. This is where governance comes in and being able to categorize to say, you know what is really critical to this company? The Pareto principle says that at the end of the day, 20% of our effort accounts for 80% of our success, isn't it? So it means that there are some assets that really account for the bottom line of the company. Not everything. So when data is properly classified and governed, then you know what your crown jewels are. I call it juggling the balls. So you have some balls that are glass balls. If you drop them, they're broken. It's gone. There are some that are rubber balls that, no, they could drop, they'll bounce back up. They could. So you need to juggle the balls. You need to know, what are my glass balls? What are my rubber balls? Which can I let go? Which can I not let go? And that's how, for me, you navigate it.
Yeah, sounds. So the shift to remote work has posed new cybersecurity challenges. How has the rise of remote work impacted cybersecurity strategies, and what measures should organizations take to secure remote endpoints and mitigate associated risk?
Remote work, interesting. So, I mean, I think what's interesting with remote work is, and people who have been in security for a long time, they will tell you some of these things are not too new. We're just adapting. What just happens is there used to be a time where you bring your laptop to the office, and within that perimeter, we're fenced off. We don't care what's happening outside. We have created this room, this building where it's all secure. But now I need to take my laptop to Johannesburg. I need to take my laptop to Mumbai. I need to be in Los Angeles. I need to be in Lagos. I need to be in Accra, Ghana. I need to, and the question now is, with all this movement, how do I make sure that you are secure? And which brings me to your question. So there are so many ways to go about that. So one of the ways, first of all, I mean, we already spoke about awareness, right? Because regardless of I used to tell the team when I do security awareness, I said, I can patch a network device. I can update my antivirus, but I can't patch your brain. So if we do all of those, and you still goof on your end, there's nothing much we can do, isn't it? So that's also very important. But I think that this is where things like multi-factor authentication come in, because now, because of all these movements, it is so easy to lose your password. Your password for me is no longer a security mechanism. It is now part of the components of a broader security mechanism. So things like multi-factor have to become very important. I also think when we talk about location and changing, we need to also look at behavioral analytics. And this is why your SIM tool is important, because you should be able to say, this behavior is weird, this is out of behavior, and be able to flag and say, hey, are you here? Certain tools have certain things like impossible travel. It's one of the rules in SIM tools. So impossible travel is saying you just logged on from Mumbai 5 minutes ago. 15 minutes after, you have logged on, I don't know, from Johannesburg. I think it takes more than 15 minutes to fly from Johannesburg. So something is wrong somewhere. And this is where analytics begins to flag things to you. So I think that monitoring is extremely important. I think that agility in response to threats now has to be very heightened with remote work. A friend of mine, when I was head of security, we didn't know from anywhere. All of a sudden, boom, we just saw alerts going off from his laptops, like there had been a serious malware attack on his laptop. What had happened because of remote work was his son came to sit where he was working and saw this pop up on the screen and goes, "Daddy, this is playing." And that is out going to get some water. And he clicks on it. He didn't know that was a malware. And the moment the son clicked on it, boom. Now, if we did not immediately capture that at the firewall level, we would have been in a lot of trouble, So yes, this is remote work. This is what it brings. These are the kind of risks we deal with now.
Yeah. So in such a situation, one should shut down the PC or what?
So, the funny thing, the dad did not have a clue what had happened. It was those of us at the security center who knew something had happened. And so we called and said, "What's going on? Your system has actually been infected now." And he goes, "Oh," then he calls his son. And then that's when his son tells him what's going on. What we had simply done was we had simply just isolated his machine, right? So we had simply just isolated his machine on the back end. He needed to now bring the machine physically to the office to be connected to the network to scan it.
Yeah. So ransomware attacks and data breaches continue to make headlines. What factors are contributing to the rise of ransomware attacks, and how can organizations enhance their resilience to ransomware threats and protect the sensitive data and breaches?
Data breaches. Oh my God. You know what? Let me tell you how I approach data breaches from a practical perspective, because you mentioned a few things there. Data breach, resilience, those are very key words now, because I keep telling people we have moved from the area of cybersecurity to cyber resilience, because, and that shift, if you've not made it, you will be forced to make it. So you better make it quickly. My approach to data, how can we sort of better protect data and minimize breaches? We cannot eliminate breaches. So I think we need to have a holistic strategy all the way from protecting against breaches to be able to respond back from a breach. So this is what I do. The first thing, governance. We need to have policies in place that clearly talk about how we deal with data and how we respond to data breaches. I also think we need to have data classification. This is also at the governance level. We then need to have a data catalog. Where are personal identifiable information in this company stored? That's a question not many people can answer. The moment that is done, now this is the catalog. We now need to have discovery. We need to be able to discover, because there's a lot of personal data flying around. Okay, so we need to have tools to be able to discover. It's one thing to say this is the catalog, that's where you think it is, but your tool is going to be able to tell you, nope, there's someone in this database, there's someone there. After discovery, we then need to have controls to protect. This is where you have multi-factor authentication. This is where you have access controls. Okay. From protect, we now need to be able to comply. there are certain things which are required to be reported very frequently. Okay, you have your personal breach within 72 hours, report things. Their carrier ID probably report to your risk team. Then you need controls to detect, because sometimes, regardless of what you do, you're still going to need to detect. So this is where you need your SIEM tools. You need your monitoring solutions to be able to detect. Then you need to be able to respond. In response, you need to have things like your use cases, okay? Things like orchestration, because it's only with orchestration you can be able to think, oh, what will a 0-day look like? And be able to respond. So I think it's a holistic approach to this. I think it's governance, discovery, protect, comply, detect, respond.
Oh, very well articulated.
Thank you.
Okay, so we were talking about zero trust. So zero trust security has gained popularity as a proactive approach to cybersecurity. What are the key principles organizations should consider when implementing a zero trust strategy? Because you being a global cybersecurity expert, I think you can throw some light on this.
Zero trust. I'll make it simple for you because it's been a buzzword for so many times, or rather for a very long time, pardon me. It's been a buzzword for a very long time. So what is zero trust? Zero trust is saying, first, never trust. There was a time when we were growing up, we were told trust but verify. Now that has evolved to never trust. Never trust what? Never trust the who, never trust the what. Never trust the person who is authenticating. Never trust the what, the device, the mobile phone, the whatever. So that's the first principle. Never trust. 2, assume breach. So you need to be set up. You see, I was speaking about response now. You need to be set up to assume that you have been breached. So the question is, how do we respond? So it forces you to think about proactive ways of responding because you have assumed breach. What else? Continuously verify or validate. What that means is the fact that Kalpana logged into her system today with her password and her MFA, tomorrow, do not assume that the person with that credential is Kalpana. She needs to be validated again. Okay, so that's again what zero trust is saying. And the final one, which I think is important, is that zero trust speaks about the least privilege, right? It talks about the least privilege principle, which means rather than how much does Kalpana need to do her job, zero trust says how little does Kalpana need, how little access now does she need to do her job. So it's a bit of a change in the mindset and in the way we do things, but I think it's important because what it then makes you do is, 1, people do not have excessive rights for what they don't need. 2, you now have what we call security by design because you have asked the right questions. 3 is the person is authenticated, but the person is authenticated, but their device is also authenticated because the right person might be accessing the wrong device and the device might be stolen. You never know. So person, device always need to be authenticated. And this is where we start talking about things like, I am and those type of concepts. But yeah, that broadly speaking, that's zero trust.
Yeah. So down the line, zero trust is something which even at times hamper the productivity of the employees. And how are we going to, deal with such a situation?
Oh, I have to deal with that. And again, this brings me back to data classification. You cannot put the same level and layer of security on everything. Okay. It's a different conversation, and I've had this type of conversation. If I tell the CEO that, you know what, for our core banking application, you need to authenticate every time you come in. We don't care if you authenticated yesterday. Why? Because this is where, if someone gets into this application, what would happen? Oh, we could lose $10,000 in 5 minutes, which means in a day, we could practically lose half $500,000. Oh, wow. Okay, whatever. It's our crown jewel. We need to protect it. Now, what you don't want to do is go on a file server where people are just dragging files and keeping Excel sheets, and now say, for every time you want to authenticate, you need biometrics, you need this, you need this, you need this. Right? So it comes down to, if we have not properly classified to say this is what is important to us, and you have made everything important, you're just going to frustrate the business. But when it's clear that, you know what, for these three applications, these three applications are responsible for how this entire business runs, these other five, just log in with your password once in a while. We will ask for authentication, here and there. But you cannot apply that same level across board, because you will frustrate the business.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think there has been a huge skill gap when it comes to cybersecurity. So, so it's again looks to be a challenge for the organizations. So, how can industry address the shortage of skilled cybersecurity professionals? And what strategies can organizations adopt to build and retain a strong cybersecurity workforce?
This question, Kalpana, do you have between 7 to 8 hours to answer it? I don't know how to answer this in 2 minutes, because there's so let's see how we break this down. There's a huge blame on everyone for this one, Kalpana. There is the organizations to blame, cyber professionals to blame, and the university or the college institutions to blame. So first of all, what quality and how practical is what we call cybersecurity courses in schools? How practical is it? I get to mentor at some of the biggest universities in the United Kingdom and in Canada. And when some of the students are talking about what they're learning in school, I'm like, it's not even relevant, man. And you stay for 4 years. And here's the thing. You get in to learn about security practice that you come out in 4 years, and it is totally irrelevant, because the world you meet in 4 years when you come out, or 3 years when you come out of the university, is a different world. So there's a blame in the institution there. The cybersecurity professionals are also, and the organizations are to blame. I was at the CISO forum in London, I think sometime in August last year. And we were speaking about this. And one of the questions I asked, again, because I get to mentor university graduates and master's students, is what does the job description of an entry-level cybersecurity professional with no experience look like? We were like, all the CISOs in the room, heads of security for all the big companies. No one could talk about it, because it doesn't exist. Even for the entry-level cybersecurity roles, you seem to need 2 years or 3 years experience. So somewhere in this whole thing, we have created this profession, which has a skill gap, has people training from the university, nowhere to get the skill. Now we require that they need 2-3 years experience. And so that's why the gap is there. It's because there are people on the other side who have the skill, don't have the years. Organizations on this side want entry level with some years. So where are they going to come from? This is the gap. And this is why I said we could talk about this for 4 years, because I could sit on this forever. Where do I think we start solving this problem? Okay, so let's think about this. First is, we need to understand that is where the gap is. The gap is not something in the air. This is where the gap is. The gap is you require entry-level people to fill certain roles that do not have experience. The universities have not properly trained them. You want 2 years. They have no years. So where does this gap get closed? We need to improve on the curriculum in these schools. I think cyber, artificial intelligence, I think these are courses that need to be taught a lot more by practitioners in the field. I do not think this is one of the ones where you just have a professor or a doctor who is not active in the field, just teaching a lot of theory to the students. That's one. I think we then need to now create mentoring hubs around the world, so that as people come, they get mentored. Then I think on the organization side, we need to, as an industry, come together and say, realistically, what do you expect for someone who has some computer knowledge and has not had practical cyber experience? What is the expectation for this role? Is it fair to say you must have CISO, you must have CISM, you must have knowledge of firewall, you must have knowledge of SIM, you must have all these things, and you say this is entry level? Come on, we need to be realistic. So that's my thought.
So the takeaway, I think, is that like in the profession of medical, the doctors are practicing at the same time they are teaching at the hospitals.
Yes.
And
let's start having what we call visiting lecturers, right? So let professionals come visit. Right. Let them come visit. Let's give you the real world scenario of what is happening.
Yeah, sure. So that's really a really interesting point that I think in this conversation we have come out with, that we should have CISOs, the mentors in the cybersecurity, the experts, are the visiting lecturers.
Yes.
There's a lot of opportunity for that. Well, sure. So, we know that businesses are driving on the backbone of digital technologies, and that's the trend, or I would say that's the need of the hour. And now, over and above that, cybersecurity, technology, businesses are running on the backbone of digital technologies, and cybersecurity is more important. Like you earlier mentioned, that the security layers has to be from the initial stages itself. So, which means it means a lot to the business overall business. So, what are your thoughts in terms of that? How the cybersecurity experts, or I would say the chief information security officers of the organizations, can actually, are they presently kind of reporting to the CEOs or to the CIOs? And moving forward, what will be the trend? How it will look like?
So I'm just going to be very straightforward here. CISOs should not be reporting to the CIOs. Structurally, that's wrong. Because when you do that, you have made cybersecurity a technology risk. Cybersecurity is a business risk. So the CISOs should be reporting to the people who run the business, which should either be the CEO or, like you said, maybe the CFO. But I really think because of positioning, it should be the CEO, because other business functions like finance risk reports to the CEO, enterprise risk will probably report to the CEO, marketing will report. Those are things that affect the business. The moment you make cybersecurity a technology problem, you've lost the plot, because this has the potential to practically erode a lot of your bottom line and totally bring a lot of reputational damage, which you do not want. Several surveys, Forbes, a lot of the big four, PwC, KPMG, they've sort of converged at a point now where you see what are the top two threats to business. You would see cyber either 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it is one of your top business risks. And I do not think that it should be in technology. It is not technology risk. It's not about operational resilience. This is about business risk. So CISOs should be reporting to the CEO. There you have it.
So this is something should happen, or globally it is already happening?
So it's happening in some places. In some other places, it is not. So because I get to go around globally, so let me give you some feel I have. So in some places in the UK, for example, the head of cyber still reports to the CIO. In some places in Africa, in Nigeria, for example, there's now regulation, for example, from the central bank to say the CISOs, this is the correct reporting line, okay? In some other places in Latin America, we saw that it's not regulated, but some CISOs are reporting to the CEO, some to the... In fact, I saw a lot of them reporting to the head of risk, which I also do not think is correct. I think the appropriate line. So this is something that I think we would all converge maybe in the next 4 or 5 years. SEC in the US just released some regulation around cybersecurity that talks about having cybersecurity experience on the board. So this has even gone one level further. So we will all come to the same convergence eventually that, you know what, this is where this should be seated. So I think that that's something that we will all come together to agree on shortly.
Sure. So we talked about the regulations. So regulatory compliance frameworks and cybersecurity standards plays a crucial role in ensuring data protection and privacy. So how can organizations navigate compliance requirements effectively while also maintaining robust cybersecurity practices to safeguard sensitive information?
Have a holistic compliance program. Let me explain what that means, because that sounds very, right. Okay, so what that means is I used to be the head of IT compliance for a multinational that had presence in 11 countries, in Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Dubai, I think Saudi, UK, Zambia, Nigeria, I think Cote d'Ivoire. It was impossible to deal with every single law in every single country for technology. It used to drive me nuts. But what we now found out when we sat down with ISO, with PCI, with GDPR, with NDPR, with LGPD in Brazil and all these kind of laws was, at the level of principle, they all seem to be speaking to the same thing. For example, if you are able to have a robust program around your access control, PCI requires strong access controls. GDPR requires strong access controls. ISO requires strong access controls. So eventually, by the time you actually have these boxes, and you have, that's what I mean by a holistic compliance program that looks at all the different buckets of IT security and IT control, and you are able to provide appropriate evidence for each of them, you will see that eventually, regardless of the new law that comes, you have most likely already done 90% of the work, and it's probably just a little tweak here or a little tweak there. But it's just impossible to be chasing every single law. In China now, the PIPL is out now. So it just keeps coming out now, right? So, but guess what? The PIPL is speaking a lot of the things that if you already had a very robust data privacy program, it's nothing really new. It's just being able to now evidence some of those things. Yeah. So have a robust and holistic privacy and compliance program.
Sure. So your expertise spans across various domains such as IT governance, risk management, etc. So coupled with mentoring hundreds of professionals, what motivates you towards continuous innovation while guiding others through their careers?
Another word, intellectual restlessness. So, I was told a very long time ago that I was intellectually restless. I always challenge the status quo because I always ask one question: why? Why are we doing this? I ask this in every organization I work with. This report we are sending, why do we send it? Why can't we send it this way? Why can't we do it this way? Why? And the moment you start asking why, what begins to happen is alternatives begin to pop up, and then that's how innovation really comes at the end of the day. So that's one. The other one about mentoring is I did not have anyone to guide me on my path, so I feel like I made a few mistakes which I could have avoided. And so I think the way you replicate success is to create a path and guide people through that path. And so that's what I'm really trying to do with mentoring. And it's something I'm proud of. Yes, I get to mentor a lot of security, not just security, IT audit, IT control, professionals. And now, because of my book, I get to just really talk to a lot of professionals, regardless of whether you're in tech or not.
So, your why factor actually reminds me of Newton.
Right.
why the apple is falling down.
Exactly.
We had enough gravity.
Yes, that is it. It's always why. Why can't we fly in the sky? Why must everything that goes up come down? Whoop, there you go. Airplane. It's not coming down. Okay.
the last but not the least, if you can talk about your top tech and business priorities over the next 2 to 3 years.
Oh, okay. That's easy. I run a foundation, which really tries to do different things in Africa. One of the things we do is we try to pay for school fees and tuition for kids that are from single moms who cannot afford to do that. So that's a project that's very close to my heart, and that's something I plan to do and begin to scale as quickly as we can. I am writing my second book, so that's also important for me. My first book was an Amazon bestseller in 24 hours, so I'm not sure if I could do better, but I'm hoping to do something close and publish a lot more thought leadership on cybersecurity and begin to take cyber to the non-technical people, because they are the ones who take the decisions for the cyber professionals. So regardless of how much cyber professionals have all these conferences we have where we talk to ourselves, I think we now need to take cyber to the business. And I want to be at the forefront of that.
Sure. So what message you would like to give to the CXO TV audience, which are the budding CISOs and the CIOs?
So, well done for all the hard work you do. Been in the CISO shoes before, it is not easy. Also have led the technology function, it is also not easy. I think that both roles complement each other. I do not think that they compete. And so I think that continue seeing how you can leverage both your roles to be able to support the organization to achieve the organization objectives. And I think together, you are stronger.
Thank you so much. And I would really like to express my heartfelt gratitude to you for taking out time and joining us today on CXO TV for the CXO Talk. Thank you so much.
Very well. Very well. Look forward to the next time we talk about mental health issues for technology professionals. That should be interesting.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Kalpana.
Thank you, Dr. Fene.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.